and welcome to the best thing you watched this week. I hope it's going to be the best thing you listened to and watched. Very excited this week. We've got a special guest. But first, there's Chris from Movies and Munchies. Everybody give him a hand. Hey, Chris. And myself, Ruben from Movie Tuesday. And on the audio, we have a very special guest by the name of Jon Brown, who is doing one of my favorite series on podcasts at the moment called the Composer Series, which we will talk a lot about. But Jon is a producer and a presenter. I've known him for many years and has been in the biz, as they say, entertainment biz for many years, and has taught me a lot about what I know, and a few good things, a few bad things. Hi, Jon.
How you doing? You all right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's great.
No, you're more than welcome. For those that don't know you, excited. How would you, when you introduce yourselves to people that are doing this sort of thing, because I presume you've done some like this, what do you say? What are you, Jon?
What am I? There's a question we can ponder on for many hours. No, I guess I think you nailed it. Like producer, presenter, host. I think all of those things are pretty accurate. I mean, yeah, I guess I do everything on the show from scratch. So all the research, booking all the guests, interviewing the guests, post-producing the show, all the audio mixing, everything. So yeah, I guess it falls under a number of categories or titles. I'm not really one for labels. So I guess yeah. Producer presenter works really well.
Hey Jon, where can our listeners and viewers find you?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I would say the best place to go if you want to listen right now is to mixcloud.com/the Composer Series. And there's a couple of episodes on there. I'm currently kind of working through updating that because there are a ton of really great episodes up there right now, but there are a ton more that we aired on the radio here in the UK, but we haven't put them online yet. And there's some really, really good episodes to come as well. So yeah, mixcloud.com/Composer Series, I think is the best place.
Outstanding.
I've been very excited to have Jon on because Jon's always the guy that I go to if there is trivia to be had when it comes to composers. He will know the person, or he'll put you in the right direction, or he'll have a very strong opinion about like whether you're wrong or not. And often will point me in the direction of something that I haven't heard yet, and then that becomes like part of the stable composer people that I listen to. So at the moment, Chris, Jon, who are your favorite composers to listen to? I would say Lorne Balfe, especially off the back of his current series. I see his name everywhere at the moment. I'm loving his fantasy direction and composing. Who would you say is yours at the moment?
Chris, you want to go first, or?
Yeah, I like Bear McCready. Well, gosh, I would have to look up. There are two soundtracks that are actually just the scores that if I'm in the mood to hear something moving, that I'll listen to. And one is from The Power of One, and then another one is The Last of the Mohicans. And both of those, I mean, some of that's nostalgia, and I don't know who the composers are on those, but they're wildly different. One is like South African, and one is, it's Native American, but the music is not Native American. It's just more orchestral. So that's where I go.
Those are two really great scores. That's some top choices. Very cool.
Thanks.
Very cool. For me, I guess it's difficult because I've got to love a lot of them, and that I can't choose. There's not a favorite. I can't choose one record or one composer. I think that's really hard. Also, it's quite difficult to say in public because some of them are very, very grateful to be able to say. I'm very honoured and very, very privileged to be able to say I've become friends. So now if I shout one out that isn't the one I'm friends with, but they understand. But the funniest thing actually, do you know what, in answer to that question, when I ask that question of other composers, the one name, in fact, there's kind of two names, I guess. The one name that comes up often is John Williams. Like everybody's inspired by John Williams.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And I think that's a fair comment. I think like he is god tier. And it's funny and it's interesting when we sit down with composers and we say, well, who are your inspirations? A lot of the names that come back from a lot of the composers are people like John Williams. He's probably the most consistent one. Also people like Elmer Bernstein, Jerry Goldsmith. Those guys are really, really popular in terms of, you know, influence and inspiration among young composers today, which is really, really nice. I'd say if I had to choose, you guys are like gonna put me in a corner here and say choose one, I would probably say John Williams, because I just think he is an inspiration. He is magical for sure.
There's certain films of his that you just say the name of the film and you know the cue, you know the score. There's some composers you can do that with, but with John Williams for sure, it plays in your head immediately. You can see a poster and have the score cue. Sorry, Chris, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Oh no, John, have you had the opportunity to interview John Williams?
Well, that's the dream, isn't it, Chris? I think that's the goal. I always said, like, I really, really want to, and I would love nothing more, and it would be a great privilege to be able to do that, because, like I said, I think he's an inspiration. I think he's an incredibly brilliant composer, but also, by a lot of accounts, a very generous and a very, very lovely man. And that would be a great privilege. I haven't had that opportunity yet. There is a running joke that once I've interviewed him, then I'll probably retire, because, like, where do you go after that, you know? So in a lot of ways, I'd love to interview him right now, and in a lot of other ways, I kind of don't, because I'm kind of like, where do I go after that, you know? Because he is, by many accounts, not just my own, but by many accounts, he is the bar, you know? He really is the bar. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that opportunity should it present itself. I'm willing it to happen, please. But we'll see, you know, we'll see.
Having listened to your composer series, John, there's been a few that I think I would probably have that same sort of awe if I was in the room with them as Mr. Williams. What are some of your favorites that you've encountered and were just surprised by the person? Because some of them, their stories of life are the most interesting thing to me, and is often how they start creating. Could you share some of those for us, some of your top moments?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think you're right. Actually, you captured that perfectly, in that there is a magic in the process, and like I love to ask the process question. And I know that some shows, you know, I've had not criticisms, but kind of feedback that the show can be somewhat formulaic, in that, you know, I ask a similar set of base questions, but then obviously, like all good interviews, you know, you kind of have your base questions and then the conversation takes its own natural direction. But the one I always make sure, the two questions I always make sure I get in there are, how did you begin? Because I think the life story is really quite interesting, and a lot of times, as you say, quite magical. And the process, because every artist has a different way of doing things. There's no right or wrong way of doing a thing. It's just every creative person has their own way of doing that, and that inspires me. So yeah, I mean, there are different ways to do that, and different ways that composers do that, and each and everyone I speak to has a really interesting way of doing things, and that really inspires me. In terms of moments, I can't really say, again, going back to my previous point, I can't really say like favorites, because I've got to be brutally honest with you. And I know this is a really boring answer, but they've all been really, really wonderful. Like, I can honestly say with my hand on my heart, I've never ever gone into a room or onto a call with a composer and had a bad time, ever, because they are the most wonderful community of people. And I know this sounds like a complete PR spin, but honestly it isn't. They really are. And they're a great bunch. They're really, really wonderful people, and honestly, I can honestly say, touch wood, hand on my heart, and all those other things, that as yet I've never done a bad one, put it that way, and we've always had a great time. So to pick a favorite would be really, really difficult, because they, you know, we have a wonderful time with each of them. I think that comes out in the shows as well. I think you can hear that in the shows. I don't really play favorites on that front, but
yeah, so
I've
not
had some
not
wonderful...
so much a favorite, but some of those moments that you've just enjoyed,
Yeah, well, pinch yourself moments, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, you can't believe you're doing it, things like that.
Mm.
I think Alan Silvestri is definitely one of those.
Yeah.
Because he is a master, and again, very much so John Williams. You know, you could see certain movie posters, like you were saying, Ruben, about, like, you could look at Roger Rabbit or Back to the Future's like DVD box right now, and you can hear that. You can hear those themes. They're very, you know, prominent, especially with people like Alan Silvestri and Hans Zimmer and people like that. So I think Alan Silvestri was a magical moment because I think his was the first record I ever bought as a kid. So for me, that was a kind of a coming of age moment, really, to be able to sit and talk with him. He was very graceful. He was very generous. He's a really, really fun guy. And he was quite happy to answer literally every fanboy question I threw at him, which was really, really nice. But he was so happy about it. You know, and like with a lot of composers, I think we come to the party feeling like really privileged and really honored to be able to do this, which we are. But at the same time, you know, those guys are really, really happy that we love their music. Does that make sense? Like, they're so open to fans, they're so receptive, and whilst they're making something to picture, they're musical storytellers. Ultimately, their primary focus needs to be to tell a story with music. That's the job. But if what they're doing there then impacts somebody's life in a positive way, and I mean that by, like, if you were saying if you need to get powered up, something like Last of the Mohicans works for you, stuff like that. You know, for them to be able to hear that actually that's impacted somebody's life in a positive way is really, you know, it's incredible for them, because they're like, hey, you know, we make this music, this is our job, this is what we do. But if we can, as a, you know, an offshoot of that, impact people positively from a CD or an album or a concert or whatever, you know, it's a really wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So yeah, I think Alan Silvestri was probably one of those moments. And there are a couple of other moments as well. Like, Ruben, you mentioned Lorne. Obviously, I've done a couple of things with Lorne now. I think Lorne's been on the show like 5 times. He was the first episode. And he was kind of the idea and the inspiration, behind the whole thing coming together. So, he and I have done a couple of bits and pieces. And I went to a scoring session with him. We went out to Abbey Road and I watched him score Mission Impossible Fallout, which was really, really awesome.
Wow.
And to just be in the moment. And that's another thing I say. Magical moments. I think some of those moments are not only in the interviews themselves, but in the moments surrounding it. So, like, you know, getting to go to Air or Abbey Road and watch the guys work before we sit down and do an interview. That's a really special privilege and something that I really love, because you get to see them in their zone. You know, this is them doing their thing, you know.
So you were there for part of the scoring of Mission Impossible 4? Is that it? Was I hearing that
or
correctly?
6? Fallout. For Fallout, yeah. So the last
Fallout,
one.
okay. That is spectacular. I mean, describe that for me. I just want to.
Well, that one was particularly special. I'm very lucky. I've been to Abbey Road a couple of times. Since then for a couple of different projects, and I'm no doubt, I'm sure I'll do it again. But that was the very first time I'd ever been there. So it was very not exhilarating on different levels, because number one, you're in this very special place that's kind of like, you know, has the ghosts of music history in it, in a lot of ways. But then also you're coming to the party to watch a Mission Impossible movie be scored, and Mission Impossible was obviously like one of my favorite franchises ever.
Yeah.
So that was a very special moment to be able to meet Lorne, because obviously Lorne and I had spoken a lot prior to that, but we'd never met in person. So that was also, it was very special for that reason. And then to just watch people work. And I don't think which is odd for me, as Ruben will tell you, but I don't think I said 2 words like half the day, because I was just completely like dumbfounded by everything that was going on. I was like, I'm in Abbey Road, sat on a sofa. Lorne's at work on the desk there. He's got his production team and his music team around him, who are really, really great people. And then we're looking through the control room at this room full of all these wonderful, gifted people, all playing in sync, you know, scoring this movie. And then obviously, of course, at some point throughout the day, we get to hear the theme being recorded, which is a really special moment as well. So yeah, no, it was something I'll certainly never forget. And certainly something that will stay with me forever. And actually, the director of the movie turned up, Chris McQuarrie, as well. Of course, fantastic director.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to sit and talk to him. He came up to the session, and we had some, he had some conversations with us all and shared some really wonderful anecdotes, and it was really nice to just share a bit of his time too. He's a really wonderful guy, and he's very, very positive, very encouraging person. Not only just a great director, but yeah. So that was pretty special. So I've been back a couple of times since. I'm kind of getting used to it now, but I don't know if you guys have ever been outside it. Yeah, I know, because it's such a privilege. It's so overwhelming, but like, actually outside there's a gate. I love telling people this story because if you ever go there as a visitor, you can see you can't actually visit it. You can't go in, and there's a big sign on the gate that says no entry to anyone ever, unless you're here on business. So, and I always do this, like, the whole time I have an invitation, I'm past security, I'm on the door, everything's been cleared, I just need to go and pick up a badge and everything's cool. And still, when I get to that gate, I stop and go, I shouldn't be here. And then go, no, I should. Just walk through the gate because the sign's like, do not enter. But they're all really great people at Abbey Road, by the way. The whole team there, the staff there are great. They're so accommodating. You turn up, you say, hey, I'm a guest here today. They're like, how can we help you? And yeah, no, it's a place full of magic and wonder, and I can't wait to get back there.
Yeah, that's kind of like my Disneyland. Well, for you, I guess. You were there recently. For a game, right? Are we allowed to talk about that?
I was, yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that. So it was earlier. It was a little bit earlier this year in the summer. They were scoring in Studio 2, which I believe was the Beatles studio originally. And we were up there for Guardians of the Galaxy, which was the video game. And Richard Jakes was recording that there. And it was really nice because, again, Richard was someone I'd been a big fan of for a while. Like, I love the score that he did for Bloodstone, the James Bond video game, a couple of years back, about 10 years or so now. So it was nice to go and meet him. And he was great, which was fine because, there's always that moment. You say about meeting your heroes and all this kind of stuff. So it was nice to be. He was really, really lovely. And we had a lot in common. He is totally into everything like we are. Like, he loves comics. He loves, the lore of everything. Like, he did a ton of research into like Guardians history before he started writing scores. Like,
amazing.
From comics to movies to cartoons to like, he took it all in. Because he himself was a fan. So it was really nice. Yeah, we had an opportunity to go and watch that, and I just went over there for a morning and watched him like working with, I think he was working on brass and strings that day, because obviously because of COVID everything has to be recorded separately in different segments now. You can't have so many people in the room and stuff.
Oh gosh, yeah,
I think he was doing brass and strings that
more
day.
Complicated.
Yeah, no, but it was good. It was really, really nice, and I got to hear the theme, which you can now hear in the game, of course, being recorded and played for the first time. So that was an experience for sure.
Yeah, I've just finished the game, and the dialogue and the story are fantastic, but that game wouldn't be what it is without that score. The score is so alive and puts you in that adventure zone. So to have been there, he amazing.
Yeah, no, I know he was hoping for. I mean, anyone in a creative position like that always hopes for the best possible result, of course. But I know that he was extra passionate about everything about it. And it was so important, and you'll hear that if you listen to the show. Like, everything about it was so important to him that he got it right, because for him the whole kind of central narrative was he needed to, as I remember, it was very important for him that while you were playing that game you felt like the hero. While you were making those choices while you're playing the game, for him it was kind of like paramount, not just in that but in other games that he'd scored as well. Like, if the music makes you feel like you're the hero of the story, then he's done the job. So, and I think he achieved that, like, massively. So yeah, there are a couple of other things coming up. Obviously, I can't talk about those right now, but I'm sure in due course we'll talk about it. I know there's some pretty awesome stuff happening next year, but I'll get into that with you guys maybe when I'm allowed to.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on for those.
Yeah. Well, what about some recent releases maybe that have really stood out to you as far as the score goes? What have you just like been loving?
I tell you what I did. It's funny because I haven't seen the movie yet because of the Guardians thing. I didn't get a chance to screen the movie, but Ramin Djawadi's score for Eternals is amazing. I had a chance to sit down. I still haven't seen it in context, but I sat down and listened to the score the other day, and I thought, this is gorgeous. Like, really, really, really nice. I'm a big fan of Ramin's anyway. I love his stuff on Game of Thrones. And you know, Iron Man as well. Of course, he scored the first Iron Man. Yeah, that was an amazing score. Really, really, really like that. And also, the couple I keep coming back to, like Rob Simonson's score for Ghostbusters, just incredible. The way that I mean, I don't want to talk too much about that, because I guess if you talk too much about what he's done on that score, you kind of give some things away in the movie, I guess. But it's such a great hat tip to the past. Let's put it that way. And nice. What else was I listening to? I really like Chris Bauer's score for King Richard. That's out this week. It's a really beautiful score. And what else has really stood out right now? There's a few, like Lorne Balfe's score for Wheel of Time, of course. He's got 2 out right now. He's got a score for Wheel of Time and a score out for Dope Sick as well, which is on Hulu, I think, in the States.
Hulu, yeah.
It's on Disney Plus here, which he's done a really great score for. He just doesn't stop. I think he literally...
Yeah, he works.
I ask him. It's a running joke. It's a running joke between he and I. ask him when he sleeps, because he's just on it, and he's working on mission as well right now. I can tell you that, I'm allowed. He's working on the next mission right now too, so he's busy.
Is he doing both of them?
But yeah,
the next 2?
I believe so. Yeah, I don't. We
Nice.
we didn't get to that. He actually said on my last show with him that he was scoring mission, and that was in the public forum, so I can. A little bit, but I'm sure he's going to come up with some awesome concepts like he always does.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an exciting time, put it that way.
But
there's so many good scores right now.
Of Time score then?
Yeah, I love it. I kind of feel like I'm a little biased though at this point. I don't know if I.
well, I haven't met him. And,
he'll love it.
I love the score, but this is a good segue into Chris. Because you see, the first 3 episodes are out, and I got the screeners for a number of them, and absolutely loved it. But I haven't read the books. But I hear Chris doesn't like it. Let's talk about this, Chris.
I enjoy the score. Okay, and let me preface, I'm only 1.5 episodes in, because my last 2 days of binge watching and watching for reviews have been also timed with some releases. So I've had to cut some things short, and I also had to go to a press screening the other night when I would have started Wheel of Time. So it was, anyway, enough excuses out of the way. Okay, I'm done with my excuses. It feels like it's kind of fan fiction of Lord of the Rings.
Wow.
Okay. So I know.
If you're listening,
okay.
Start throwing things at your screen.
Yes. Instantly dislike Chris's video, not Ruben's. Okay. But I wrote down a couple of notes just as I was watching, just in those first 1.5 episodes. Okay. So it is mentioned in Wheel of Time that there are the Mountains of Mist. We have the Misty Mountains within Tolkien's world.
I see what you're doing.
There is there's the one power. Well, there is the one ring. They talk about how they miss the sound of rushing water. Well, I miss the sound of leaves and trees. The Trollocs, which is also just almost like a play on words of orcs. So you have this group of Trollocs chasing down the mountain towards the people. And
they don't look
the
like
orcs do that.
Though.
They don't. Okay, fine. The character design is spectacular.
Yeah,
those monsters that they create, I loved them. They were outstanding. So I'm not trashing on the whole series. It's just I just had issues with it. And then when they get to cross the river, in episode, I think it's episode 1 of Wheel of Time, they come to this place where they're being chased by these by the Trollocs. Okay,
you're
and
they come to
they come to the river and they get on the boat and they go across, and then this hooded, shrouded figure with no eyes and a big screaming mouth on a black horse stands at the edge of the water on the dock and screams.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That was a Nazgul.
That was a Nazgul, yeah.
I just, now,
the thing is, this comes from a book that he started writing in 1984, so it had to be there first, right?
What, the book, The Wheel of Time, was there before Tolkien?
No, I'm just
right?
saying
That's what
the author started writing it.
Oh, no.
in
Tolkien was
Tolkien's
first,
way
obviously.
before, yeah.
Yeah, no, I know,
Yeah.
I know. That's why. So, I'm willing to give the show a chance. Okay, and I am enjoying it. I just have it's been really tough for me to get into, because part of it is just I need to take myself out of this is a Lord of the Rings ish ripoff. You know what I mean? Like, it's light, and let it just be its own thing. Because I love Rosamund Pike.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
I think she is
yeah.
Absolutely, she's a wonderful actress. Even the four kids that they have, and they're not really kids. I mean, they're 20 years old. Yeah,
to us they are, though, because we're ancient.
They're kids. Yeah, they're the same age as mine. So, but to have, I like them so far, and I like how they have come from different backgrounds and just within one little area. They're messed up. The one with the kid who, there was a situation where he was in a fight and something tragic happens, and I felt that. I mean, it was like when he sees it and his eyes, I mean, he just, like, I was like, oh my gosh, so it is hitting me. It's not, I'm not.
So you didn't think that wouldn't happen in Lord of the Rings?
No, I was searching for, like, where does this go? Where was this at in Lord of the Rings? No,
I'm just playing. But you're allowed to not like it, kind of.
No, I know, but it's. I'm willing to give it a try too, because you know what? It's not fair to judge the entire series. And I didn't realize that it was 3 episodes in one day, and then it's dropping weekly through Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
So it is. I mean, there's a chunk to this show, so I need to let it work. I need to let it breathe a little bit, and I understand that sometimes premiere episodes are a little.
It has had mixed
they're just
feelings, though, from fans who've read the books. There's a lot that they've changed, apparently, which I can't speak to. So there is that side of things. What about your thoughts on it, John? Have you managed to watch it yet? I know you've listened.
I haven't.
Do you plan?
I haven't. No,
I like your fantasy.
Yeah, I do. I'm a big fan of all that kind of stuff. I was actually really, really excited about it. Again, I kind of feel like I'm a little bit biased because of Lorne. I kind of, in terms of professional position, I think when things that Lorne does come out, everyone's like, oh, he's going to like that anyway. But I know. But anyway, so it's come out, and I'm getting around to it. I really, really want to see it. I don't know if I want to now after what Chris has said.
I know, yeah.
No, don't let me.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I am really looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to drawing my own conclusions on it, of course, but I haven't seen it yet, so I can't comment. But I do know that the score is fantastic.
It is. It's excellent, yeah. Mm-hmm. And talking about another title that has had mixed reviews, mixed impressions from fans from a long time running anime. We can finally talk about it. And I'm sure John's heard the score as well for this from the Cowboy Bebop live action series, which is, again, there's people on the internet that are angry. They pitchforks and saying words and keyboard warriors, and but I thought the score was excellent, and there's a lot about it that I loved. I didn't love the series, and I think I still love the anime. So, who wants to go first?
Chris, if you've seen it, I'll let you go first.
Okay. Well, okay, so I really loved the anime. One thing that I absolutely appreciate, because it is central to the anime, is just a whole aesthetic, is the score. And you have, I believe her name is Yako Kanno?
Yeah. I think you got that right. Yeah.
And so she scored the anime. They brought her on to score the live action. So the music is spot on. And I like that. I thought that was great because it still captures this weird mixture of a Western in space that's infused with jazz.
Yep.
And that, I don't even know how that works. And it is beautiful. And outstanding. So that, I love that. The series itself, I wanted them to make it different, more different, because they kind of went the same, but then they changed. They kept it similar enough where when they made some character decisions in the plot and when they would change some things, it was too close.
It was just irky,
and yet these were pivotal moments that you can't mess with in that way if you're going to keep it so close in this other way. I don't know if we can even talk spoilers. And John, have you seen it? Because I don't want to talk spoilers if it's going to ruin it for you.
You guys can talk spoilers. It's honestly fine. I'm the thing is, I'm late to this party because unfortunately I wasn't very well. I had intended to kind of get a load of content in before I came to talk to you guys, but unfortunately I was sick. It didn't happen. So I'm kind of catching up to everybody, but I'm not fussy about spoilers. So spoil away.
Can we talk spoilers, Ruben?
Let's skirt around the edges anyway, as it's early days. It just came out yesterday.
Okay,
so,
fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Have I stumped you now?
So when I did, no. It's more of me trying to figure out. I mean, because when I did my review, it was weird because I always try and make, you always try and make sure that the content that we're reviewing is just that. Even if it's based on source material, I mean, you need to judge it by itself.
Yeah.
And so I think for the most part, I mean, fans, and what I've seen in the comments too, is that people that are unfamiliar with the series first, have liked it to varying degrees. Like it hasn't been this spectacular over the top thing, but it hasn't been garbage either for the most part. And I have seen some fans who have appreciated what they've done, and I can respect that. There have been others though that are very passionate, and so that was kind of the thing that I struggled with a little bit of like, well, how easy is the story to follow if you don't really know what's going on?
Yeah, it's a good point.
And it was, I think for the most part, the story arc that they create is fairly straightforward. Because even the series itself is a little convoluted here and there because it has that overarching story with a whole bunch of adventures.
Yeah, it kind of
built
dips in and out. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this one, I want to say this one more focused on the larger story and less emphasis or less time spent on these little side adventures. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. Ruben, thoughts?
I'm going to pass it on to John and ask him what he thought about the score. Did you listen to the score?
The score is amazing. I don't think there's really much else I can say other than it's just gorgeous. It's really, really gorgeous. Yeah, I really, really like it.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings because I was an avid. I was like, this is going to be amazing. I've seen the trailer. They've done the score thing in the trailer. It looks like the anime. I love Cowboy Bebop. I'm not a huge jazz fan, so like even the fact that I love it is amazing. It reminds me of Firefly, which is obviously where Josh Whedon got inspired from because cowboys in space and the same sort of characters. They all kind of do the same things. I'm like, yeah. Not completely original, Josh, but yeah, that's another day's rant. It took me 5 episodes to get into it, like to actually enjoy it. So once I hit episode 5 onwards, I was like, okay, now I'm starting to feel the characters and starting to understand their motivations, even though I should already because I've seen the anime a number of times. And you've kept it so similar, but they're doing different things, and because that arc is all over the place, so then it's reliant on the actors to keep me engaged because if the arc is all over the place. Yeah, I did think it was a bit of a mess, but visually, it was stunning. Like, great, fun to watch. But I didn't really care what happened to the characters, and that kind of tells you, like, I wasn't that emotionally engaged. If one of them been killed off, I would have gone, oh, okay. Or I would have been surprised. Yeah, that's brave. At least that would have been different.
Yeah. There was it took me about that long also to really... And then you know what? Honestly, I began to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I won't say that I loved it by any means because I still wasn't enjoying the story arc that they had deviated and created their own from because it was just I don't think that it took the emotional punch and the emotional weight that the anime had.
Yeah.
because they ruined some surprises there. One thing that I think that I was a little disappointed with, and it could be executed, and I think it could be executed well, and I think even the actors could do it. But in the anime, there are moments where Spike is kind of goofy.
Yeah,
and not like absurd goofy. He's just it's kind of situational, and like I think about that, he wasn't, for the most part, he wasn't that way in this. That he wasn't written to be. He was much more serious, I think, throughout the and so. Like there was one episode in the anime which made me laugh out loud because of only facial expressions and actions that are happening kind of in the sidelines from the dialogue, and it was with the eco-terrorists.
Yeah.
And they have the mom who's been, so in the anime they have captured the mom who is leading this group of eco-terrorists, and Spike has this bomb that he's trying to open up, and you see him banging on it and everything else. I mean, it's going on in the background, as the narration is happening, and the facial expressions of the mom is like, waiting for it to explode and stuff. And we miss some of those types of moments within there. And I understand that you shave things off and we change it, but there was just, I think, because it changed a little bit of the core character of who they were, it made it a little harder, I think, to connect with. And maybe that's why it took longer for me to get into the series, and maybe for you to get into the series too, as somebody who's a fan of the anime.
Yeah, but I did love the score. And talking about scores, I wanted to go back to Jon with the composer series. I did wonder how that came to be. Was that always your plan? Did you always want to go that route? And where do you want to take it? What's the dream?
Well, I'm very sorry. Just going back to yours and Chris's point about those last two shows, Wheel of Time and Cowboy Bebop. I'm now all the more intrigued to kind of dig into those and explore that analysis too, because it sounds like at least one of those things doesn't pass the 4-episode rule, which is interesting to me. So I'm gonna check those out. But yeah, sorry, going back to your question. It started as, I think it was a concept that came about because basically Lorne and I chatted for far longer than we were meant to. And that's literally how it started. And I mean that in the best, most positive way. So it started because a really, really wonderful person called Beth Krakauer, and she's sadly no longer with us. She was soundtracks, put it that way.
Right.
She lived and breathed and loved film music. She loved film musicians. She loved composers, and she had an amazing agency out in the States, in LA, I believe. And she was representing composers. And I think how it kind of came together was I approached her about some soundtracks because I couldn't source them in the UK. That's literally how it began. And she and I got talking, and she's very passionate about composers and pushing composers forward and kind of getting them on radio stations and in magazines and all this kind of stuff. And she said, why don't you talk to? I think she suggested talking to Lorne because he had Lego Batman coming. So that's how long we've been going. However long Lego Batman is, however old Lego Batman is, that's how long we've been going. So yeah, I think we kind of sketched something out and said, hey, why don't we jump on Skype? We'll have a conversation. And Lorne and I will talk about it, and then I'll just take that away and do what I normally did, which is put it out on the radio during the daytime, which was part of, my films section. So one day I do a review on the air, and another day I do maybe a preview, another day I do an interview and that kind of stuff. So we had a system set in place, and I started talking to Lorne in the interview, and I think we were going to go 8 minutes in my head. We were going 8 minutes, and it was 35 or 40 minutes had gone by because but it was one of those conversations. I'd been a huge fan of everything he'd done before that. The Assassin's Creed 3 score, for example, is just phenomenal. And that's one of the ones that people keep coming back to of his, but he'd done so much great stuff like Megamind and stuff up to that point. And a lot of stuff with Hans. And so we talked about that, but also Lego Batman, which is an awesome movie. So I don't know, time ran away with itself. It was a really, really great moment. And suddenly I was kind of in a position where I had 35 minutes of content and maybe needed it cut down to like 8 to fit daytime. And I was like, well, how am I going to do this? Is there a way I could put the whole thing out on the air? But how would I do that? And then, my brain starts ticking over and I'm like, well, if I just put a song here, correction. If I put a score cue here and then we talk for a bit and then we put another score cue there and another score cue there and we kind of put a space here and a space here for some commercials and stuff. That's a show, right? We link in, we link out, we do all this other stuff that we do on the radio, as you guys know. And then it became the first episode. Without me realizing at the time, it's like it just took on its own life. And I actually credit to the guys at the station. To be fair, I was kind of sitting around talking to the guys there, like Darren and Mason and stuff. And I said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could make this an actual program? And to Mason's credit, he looked up to me and he said, well, why don't you try? What's the harm in not trying? I was like, are you serious? You'll air that? And he was like, of course I'll air it. Give it a try. Like, do a pilot. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right? But if it works, it works. And so the rest, as they say, is history. We did a pilot, and the guys played it out on the station. I think it was one night at put it out at a really good time as well. It was like 6 o'clock.
Nice.
Which is a really great time.
Wow.
And it had a really, really good response. So credit to Beth for kind of spawning the idea, because at the same time I was back and forth saying, Beth, I've got this really great idea, can you send me some more music because I want to do it? And she was like, of course. She was completely behind it. And I do miss her. She was a very, very special, wonderful person, and I don't think without her I would have had the idea, to be quite honest. And so that's how it began. And Lorne was my first. As they say, you never forget your first. But no, he's been on many times since. He's been really, really great and very supportive of the show, and whenever I need him to come on, he's right there. And of course many, many other episodes with many, many other great composers, and we've interviewed some really, really special people, varying levels of the industry who have all and actually, funnily enough, we're talking about maybe expanding that a little bit more and talking to orchestrators and people, actual musicians and people that play in the orchestras and stuff like that, to try and give a wider view of how film scores are made, instead of just talking to one person. Because the composers are always, and you'll hear on the shows, they're always talking about that composers is never really a one man, one woman, one person job. It's actually lots and lots of people all around you at all times, from music editors to producers to musicians to it's a family really of people that make one score. Even though it comes from the mind of one person, of course, it takes many, many, many people to make it a reality. So, I'm really looking forward to kind of expanding on that. I think whenever Lego Batman came out, I'm sure Ruben's Googled that since I started this conversation to see what there was. It was like 2017, maybe? I want to say 2017. But, so we've been going since then, which is really, really cool. And I'm really, really grateful to be able to keep doing it. And the plan, I think, moving forward is just to pitch it up a little bit and maybe get it out into a wider audience from this point, I guess.
Nice.
Maybe get it out into the world a little bit more, which would be really nice, to reach out and hit bigger platforms, maybe some more radio stations around the world would be really, really great. And that's all kind of stuff we're working on right now.
And going further back than that, there's a question I've not actually ever asked you, John. I just realized while sitting here. Why scores? Because in amongst the friendships in our circles, there'll be people, and I'm sure, Chris, you can relate to this, there'll be people that you can name an actor and then they'll rattle off 30 films they've been in, or quote movie memorabilia, like moments, or what they're what they've got coming up, who was involved in that project. But for John, as long as I've known him, like if you said a film, he'll be like, yeah, what's the name composed that? And I'll nod like, yeah, sure, I know who they are. But John knew them. Where did that come from? Why was that the bug, that side of film that kind of grabbed your attention?
There's two sides to this. There's two sides. Which one do you want to take first? Do you want to take where that passion began, or do you want to take how I knew it was about scores, which is a story that also features you, which is a story you've probably forgotten?
Oh,
So which way do you want to take? Do you want to take the beginning, or do you want to take the middle bit when we were like in our 20s? Which bit do you want to take?
Chris?
I want the story with Ruben.
Yeah, I feel like this is a choose your own adventure story. You get to choose which page we go to next. Nice. All right, so basically, Ruben and I used to work in a video store many moons ago when God was a boy, as they say.
Yeah.
And Keith was with us, and I remember a day where I came in to start a shift with you guys, and completely out of the blue, Keith and Ruben look up to me and say, "Dude, we figured out why it is that there are certain awful movies." Now, bearing in mind, awful is in the eye of the beholder, right? But there are certain awful movies that apparently I really loved, and they couldn't understand between them for the love of anything as to why I really love those movies. They were like, "Why does he? It's terrible. Why does he like that? It's awful." And then suddenly Keith has an epiphany. Looks at Ruben. Ruben and I are looking at each other, and they both look at me and they say, "We figured this out. It's not the movies you like. It's the scores, because those movies are awful, but the music is amazing." And we figured out the reason it's not the movies that you like, it's the scores. And from that moment, I was kind of like, you know what? I think they're onto something here. And it was. And it turns out like there are some movies that and again, this is a matter of opinion, but they might be awful to one person. One man's trash and all that. But yeah, I just thought, actually, no, I just keep coming back to that movie because I like the music in it. So yeah, that was kind of a turning point there, I think, that day in the store when you were both looking at me going, I think we've got to the bottom of why you like bad films. But yeah, so but where it comes from, like, I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think I've always been drawn to them. There's something about and that probably stems all the way back to things like Superman and Star Wars. If I got to be honest, I think
John Williams. Thank you.
yeah, John Williams. Ultimately, John Williams started the whole thing off, I guess, because I just remember being like, there are certain moments in New Hope which are really, really wonderful, and there are moments in Superman that went really, really well. I'll give you two examples of that: Twin Sunset, the Binary Sunset, and New Hope. Okay, now probably for the longest time in my childhood, I probably keep going back to that scene because I just thought it was a really great scene. And what I wasn't understanding is because that's really where you hear the Force theme really for the first time, like opening up, right? And so I kept coming back to certain moments because they give you an emotional response. You know, everybody does that. You can put New Hope on right now. You can see that Binary Sunset and the hairs on your arm are up, right? Anytime you watch that movie, no matter how old you get. So there was that. And I think there was a couple of scenes in Superman. I think probably the main... when he first rescues Lois that first time from the helicopter on the side of the building, that's an incredible moment for the score. And I just kept coming back to those moments. Like, I just keep watching the same scene. It drove my mum absolutely bonkers, just watching the same videos over and over and over again. And of course, what I realized was, as much as they are great films, and I still stand by the fact that Donner's Superman is still the best, a lot of that had to do with John Williams. And I didn't realize that maybe till I was kind of in my teenage years. And I started buying them, buying actual score albums. And I was like, I just like this music. I mean, I liked a lot of other music as well. I have a lot of eclectic taste. There's a lot of different music I like, but that one I keep coming back to the most. And I think it was the first record I ever bought was Back to the Future. I think the first CD I ever bought was the Goldenthal's score to Interview with the Vampire.
Nice.
I think was the first CD. And I think I bought a couple of other scores at the time because I really got into him because that was around the time he was doing like Batman and Interview and Alien 3, like mid to late 90s. He had still doing amazing work now, but he had a really awesome run there with some really awesome scores. So yeah, it's the one type of music that I just keep coming back to because there's something about it that just speaks to me. I don't know what it is, but I'm just connecting to it. And I can listen to it whether it's in or out of context. I can sit and listen to scores all day, and I have to do. Ruben, I know you do this as well. They're great for working to, right?
You really are, yeah.
And that's a great thing about scores. Like, there's a score for every occasion. To working out, working at your desk. Some are melancholy, some are uplifting, and that's the beautiful thing about film music.
Working out.
Well, and they can also
the Animatrix.
Sorry.
I was just going to say that's my workout. which is why I obviously don't listen to it that often, because you can see I don't work out that often. Sorry, Chris, Karen, I interrupted you.
No. I think, for me, hearing scores also puts that mental image of the scenes, like you were talking about with Binary Sunset, and or even maybe nostalgia of what I was doing or a time in my life when I saw that movie, and now that score helps me to relive that. And yeah, it's totally agree.
I have a bunch of those. Yeah, no, you're quite right. I have a bunch of those that kind of draw you back to a moment, and of course, like the mental image, like you can go through scores, and I mean, even now you can go through scores from movies that will have an emotional effect on you, and then before you know it, you're kind of weeping at your desktop because you're like, oh, this it's not because that score, that particular piece is amazing, but you've just in your mind you kind of replaying the scene from the movie. And there are a couple of examples, and I'm not going to go into them right now because I just realized there are a couple of recent films, and I don't want to spoil those movies for anyone that hasn't seen them yet. But Ruben's already going, I know which ones you're talking about. Maybe the last two movies we saw together.
Oh, okay.
Would be a bit of a giveaway. Yeah. So, but you can go back through those scores, and there's really beautiful moments in those movies that are then reflected perfectly in the music, which I think is good. But yeah, you're right. There are other scores like I listen to and I go, oh, this reminds me of the 90s. Like, Mark Mancini's score for Bad Boys. Like, if you listen to that, you just straight away you're a teenager again. You know.
Yeah, which is nice because obviously amazing how they can transport you.
Yeah. And Lorne did that. Obviously, recaptured that in Bad Boys for Life, which was really, really nice. But yeah, it's good how they can, like any music, I guess all music does that. I suppose it has an emotional response that takes you to a place. You know. A memory or a movie or a show or a game. Even now, game scores are incredible now. So yeah,
nice. Which talking about scores and things to come, I thought this would be a nice kind of segue of where we can talk about things we are looking forward to for the rest of the year. Not necessarily because we don't know when we're going to have John on, so I think it'd be interesting to get his perspective of things, and maybe he can give his kind of 2 cents on scores that he's really looking forward to, because the one that pops into mind, one of my favorite scores of all time is from The Matrix. I love that score to death. And we have The Matrix Resurrections coming up. I'm still on the fence of whether that's going to be great. I love the trailer, but I am worried that they're just like remixing the same film for new people. It feels almost like I guess a Force Awakens sort of thing. Where it's the same story. Not that it won't be enjoyable, and I want to see Trinity doing something, or Neo saying dodge this, or the bullet's time. Yeah. Okay. So what are we looking forward to, John?
Matrix Resurrections is certainly on the highlight list. I think we saw a trailer again together, didn't we? So long ago, and we just kind of looked at each other and went, yeah, because it was because it was the first time we'd seen that trailer in IMAX. I think was the reason why we were kind of like that. This is definitely going to be a thing. I am looking forward to that. I'm really, really looking forward to that, and also Spider-Man: No Way Home as well, because Michael Giacchino's on that score, and he scored all of the recent Spider-Man movies, obviously Far From Home and Homecoming, and any other movie with home in the title. He's been on top of that, right? But I was just saying to someone the other day actually that I really, really like his Spider-Man scores. Like, honestly, I love Danny Elfman's as well. I think James Horner did an amazing job. Hans Zimmer, of course, also worked on Amazing Spider-Man 2. So Spider-Man as a universe, as a cinematic universe, has had a couple of different composers, and they've all done really, really great work. But there's something particularly awesome that stands out about Michael Giacchino's Spider-Man. I can't quite put my finger on what that is, but they just really rip, Like, so I'm really excited to see what he does with that, obviously, because this is a really big episode in that arc.
Yeah, the new trailer kind of
it kind of feels like it did, and I kind of feel like that's coming to a conclusion. There's a lot of endgame energy to that.
Yeah,
did you guys see that?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
I have
those two really for me.
Yeah, do you want us to spoil it for you now, Chris?
Can you please?
Sure.
Yes. No.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not going to say any more about that. But yeah, so yeah, so that I think that's, and I guess that's the battle for Christmas, isn't it? At the movies.
Yes, probably.
Yes, those two.
three.
Really.
Yeah.
I kind of feel a little bit sorry for Kingsman because Kingsman's coming out the same day as Matrix.
It is.
They should push it, man.
And
Seriously.
I love Kingsman.
Yeah, Kingsman's
Matthew Vaughn is awesome.
great.
Yeah, so I kind of don't want that to be lost in the battle of the Titans, so to
Yeah.
speak,
Yeah.
because I think that's going to be a really great movie.
And it may pull some people, like, I hate to say this, how it's going to come out, but more mature audiences, maybe. I mean, because Kingsman is a little different,
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is, yeah.
and this one, because we're going back to tell the origin, it might hit a little different for some people, and so hopefully it doesn't get lost in that mix. But you are probably still pulling from a large chunk of the exact same demographic.
That's true. Yeah, I would quite agree with that. But again, I just think the battle for Christmas is on, I guess, between those three. I mean, there's some other really awesome stuff coming out, of course, right across the spectrum. I'm sure, as Ruben will tell you, and you guys know, with games and streaming services and all this kind of other stuff. So there's a lot happening in December, and a lot that I'm really excited about because obviously music, lots of new music to come from lots of really cool people on that front as well. Halo, of course, Halo Infinite on the games front. That's probably the biggest thing in December, I guess.
Yeah, the campaign for that is looking like it's going to be great.
Yeah, Gareth Coker worked on that score, along with a few other colleagues on that. It's a group effort, that one. But I'm looking forward to what he did with that because he was on the show.
See, that's another one that just I can hear it. You say Halo, and I hear boom, 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 boom.
Yeah. That's been a really awesome project to kind of follow as it's being developed. So, and you were saying about the Matrix score, Ruben. The original scores obviously were by Don Davis. He's an awesome composer, but he's not scoring it this time. Actually, it's
That's
the
interesting.
composers on this score are Johnny Klimek and Tom Twyker. So Twyker. I always pronounce that wrong, and I curse myself every time.
Tricky name.
Twyker. Tom Tykwer. Say that 7 times when you're drunk. And Johnny Klimek as well. No, those two, and again, I love their stuff. So I'm actually really looking forward to their take on that universe. I think they'll bring something really interesting to the table, and I'm really looking forward to what they do with it. I know a lot of people are really upset that Don Davis isn't involved, and I get that. But also sometimes it's nice when somebody else gets to
You can have some new blood. Yeah.
Yeah. See what they offer. Like Rob Simonson, took on Ghostbusters, and that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Chris,
So,
what are you looking
lots of
forward to?
Yeah, those. I think there's. Gosh, I would have to look. I want to say there was one more movie that was coming out that.
There's some big series on Netflix that I think that's because that's more my niche. That's where I'll concentrate on. So yeah, of course, Spidey and Matrix would be 2 big ones, but I think you and I will probably be very excited about The Witcher season 2.
Yes. Oh, that's got a great score.
Yeah, very very
Great
cool.
score.
How about Cobra Kai season 4?
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a big yes from me. Big yes from me.
I'm curious for Nightmare Alley.
Oh, I've heard a lot about this, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know much about it, but I do know that at least what the score that they've used in the trailer has helped to build up this sense of mystery, or not necessarily horror, but maybe a slight, you know what I mean? Like it's gripped me, and then it takes me down this path where I'm not exactly sure. So it's kind of, it makes me quizzical of like, I don't know exactly what to expect, which I think is exactly what they want to do, is to kind of keep me on my toes a little bit as an audience member.
Nightmare Alley looks cool.
Yeah, Guillermo del Toro, I mean, he's got my stamp of approval straight away anyway. anything he does,
I think
I will watch.
he's re-teaming with Alexandra Desplat on that one. And I think Nathan Johnson's involved in that as well, score. So yeah, it's a two-hander, I believe.
And Ron Perlman, so Hellboy's in there somewhere as well.
Of course.
Of course he's in it.
Of course.
But the cast is stacked.
Yes.
I mean, my gosh, Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, William Dafoe, Toni Collette. It just continues like that. It's a crazy cast.
What
Do you guys
what
like
do you
the?
Go ahead.
No, go on. Yeah, you go first. You go first.
Oh, well, I was changing subjects, but it was going to be Book of Boba Fett is coming out.
Oh, of course it is.
Now,
Yeah.
Will they? Or and I don't know this. Are they going to use like the same composer that Mandalorian had used? Because I mean that.
I don't know this one.
Ooh.
They are. Okay.
They are. Ludwig Göransson is scoring the Book of Boba Fett. Yeah,
Nice.
that's the thing that's happening.
That theme
Yeah.
is like it gives me chills. I mean, just thinking about it. You know, it has become crazy how iconic it is in just that few short notes. You know.
Yeah, you hear it, don't you?
Yep.
You feel it. That's
Yeah.
right.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you know what? I will share that with you guys. I'm currently working on, as I mentioned to you earlier in the show, I'm currently working on like, you know, remastering some, I say remastering, but kind of going back over some old shows and kind of just cleaning them up so that they can be put out for anyone that missed them like 8 months ago or whatever. But there is one from Ludwig in that collection that I'm currently working on that we did last year. So looking forward to putting that out. And we talked about that, and we talked about Creed, and we talked about quite a few other bits and pieces. Mandalorian, of course, and his work with Ryan Coogler on their projects together and stuff like that. So it's a really interesting show. And a lot of people missed it the first time around. I had quite a few. I think that's probably the most requested one, when people go, I can't see this on your page. Where is it? I want it now. It was like, okay. That and Lorne Bath. Lorne's most recent episode is hugely popular. Like, so many people are like, what happened to the Black Widow episode? Where is that? I'm like, it's on my drive. I'm going to fix it. I promise.
Nice.
But yeah, so just to be clear, these all went out on the radio first. It wasn't like I just recorded them and just left them somewhere full. Like, they have actually been out on the radio already. It's just, like I said, we're working on getting them online. But yeah, no, lots to come from Ludwig. He's working on that. And I don't know if he's working on some other big... He probably is working on some other big awesome stuff that he can't tell anyone about. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really good couple of years for him. For sure.
Yeah, I mean, Boba Fett. And we know we're going to get more Mandalorian as well. So... such a great score. There's amazing remixes online of that, where people have taken it. You know, you get this like toss a coin to your Witcher, and then people just like did their versions of it. There's loads of that. I love seeing how creative people are with that. A lot of fun. Another earworm. Is that the right term? Earworm? Would it just get stuck in your head?
Yes.
Yeah. So like a toss a coin to your Witcher. Seriously, once I hear somebody start singing that, it's done.
Do you know what? I've had that with Ghostbusters. Not the old, like the Bernstein themes. Like, of course, those you always. Whenever anybody thinks of Ghostbusters, I guess musically, maybe we'll talk about this in a second. But musically, you guys have some callbacks. I reckon if you discuss Ghostbusters, some certain things appear in your head. But that thing, and I've been driving people crazy with this all week. There's a newer kind of theme or motif, I guess, that he's created, that Rob created around Phoebe. And I don't want to go into too much details. I don't want to give anything away, but it's like he's written a new theme. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's part of this new family and this new entry to the universe, so to speak. And that theme has stuck with me all week. Like, I can't get that theme out of my head. And anybody that's seen the movie that's watching this right now are going to go, I know what you mean. Because once you get it grips you, you know? Like, it's, again, an earworm. And I noticed when I saw the movie again the other day, it's there very subtly in the beginning of the movie. Like, maybe a piano key here or a little bit of flute there. And then, obviously, by the end of the movie, it's really kind of full force. And I was like, that's cool. Because a lot of people say, oh, this soundtrack sounds like the Ghostbusters soundtrack from 1984, right? And I guess that's the point, and I love that. But no, I think he's also brought something really new to the table with those newer themes for surrounding the kids and the family and stuff, and other things I won't talk about, which I really, really liked. And that's been stuck in my head. That little motif that kind of mainly surrounds Phoebe in the story. It's just stuck, just there, and I can't, like, to the point where I'm whistling it. So yeah, that's probably my modern my earworm right now.
Nice. You all right, Chris?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm like taking it all in.
I was thinking that was a good place for us to end the first segment. If you want to hear the special, the extra bit where we talk entertainment news, that's coming up on our podcast section online, where you can find us on Anchor and Spotify, Apple, other places. Right, Chris?
Yeah, absolutely. We would love to have you join us over there. Like, share, subscribe these if you're watching. But if you're listening on the podcast, please also rate and review us, because that
is helpful.
Is certainly helping us get distributed around.